Hello, friends. I am Rose. Welcome to Story with Blue Lady, where we bring you stories full of wonder and excitement. Let's get started. Today's story is Change Yourself, Not the World. Long ago, there was a peaceful and prosperous kingdom, ruled by a wise and benevolent king. The people loved their ruler dearly, for he cared deeply about their well-being and worked tirelessly to ensure that his kingdom flourished. Under his leadership, the land enjoyed an abundance of wealth, fertile fields, and joyful celebrations. The citizens lived contentedly, surrounded by security, peace, and happiness. The kingdom seemed to be a true paradise on earth. Untouched by misfortune, the king, though content with the flourishing state of his kingdom, harbored a deep desire to personally connect with his people and see the distant lands of his realm. He had heard many tales of the beautiful temples, historical monuments, and pilgrim centers scattered across his kingdom. So one day, he made a bold decision. He declared that he would embark on a journey across his kingdom, not in the luxurious carriages he usually traveled in, but on foot. He wanted to experience the daily life of his people firsthand, to understand their struggles and joys, and to witness the beauty of his land through their eyes. Excitement spread like wildfire across the kingdom. The people were thrilled to hear that their beloved king would walk among them. Villagers in distant corners prepared for his arrival, eager to greet him with their best offerings and warm hospitality. They took great pride in knowing that their ruler cared enough to make such a personal effort to connect with them. The king's journey was long and filled with wonder. He visited grand temples, ancient ruins, bustling markets, and serene pilgrim centers. Wherever he went, his people greeted him with joy lining the streets to catch a glimpse of their ruler and engage in heartfelt conversations. He spent time listening to their stories, learning about their lives, and sharing in their happiness. The king was overjoyed to see that his people were thriving, and his heart swelled with pride as he realized just how fortunate his kingdom was. But despite the joy of his travels, there was one thing that troubled him. The journey had been much harder on him than he had expected. It was the first time he had walked such long distances, and the roads were rough, filled with sharp stones and uneven terrain. By the time he returned to his palace after several weeks of travel, the king was exhausted. His feet ached unbearably from the long, painful walk over the rough roads, and he found it difficult to even stand. As he sat in his chamber, his feet wrapped in bandages, he reflected on his journey. Although he had been filled with happiness at seeing his people's prosperity, the memory of the painful roads lingered in his mind. The king was troubled by the thought that his subjects, who walked these same roads every day, must endure the same discomfort and pain that he had experienced. He couldn't bear the idea of his people suffering like this, and he felt responsible for finding a solution. The next day, the king summoned his ministers and shared his concerns. "The roads in my kingdom are too rough," he declared. The sharp stones hurt my feet during my journey, and I cannot imagine how that painful it must be for my people who walk these roads daily. I want to ensure that no one in my kingdom has to endure this discomfort ever again. Therefore, I decree that all the roads in the kingdom must be covered with leather. The ministers were taken aback by the king's order. Covering every road in the kingdom with leather was a monumental task. It would require the hides of thousands of cows and an enormous amount of labor. The cost of such an undertaking would be astronomical, draining the kingdom's resources and causing great hardship for the people. But they knew the king's heart was in the right place. He genuinely wanted to ease the suffering of his subjects, even if his solution seemed impossible. The ministers debated among themselves, trying to find a way to fulfill the king's wish without causing devastation to the kingdom's economy. After much discussion, one of the wisest ministers stepped forward and requested an audience with the king. He bowed deeply before his ruler and spoke with great respect. "Your Majesty," he began, "I understand your desire to ease the burden of your people, and I admire your compassion. But I believe there is a simpler solution that will achieve the same goal without the need to cover all the roads with leather." The king looked at the minister curiously. "What do you propose?" he asked. The wise minister smiled gently and said, "Instead of covering the roads with leather, why not simply cover your feet? A pair of leather shoes would protect your feet from the sharp stones and rough terrain, and they would be far more practical and less costly than covering the entire kingdom's roads. Not only would you benefit from this, but your people could also wear shoes, and the problem would be solved for everyone." The king was stunned by the simplicity and brilliance of the idea. He had been so focused on changing the world around him that he had overlooked the most obvious solution. Covering his own feet and encouraging his people to do the same would achieve the same result without disrupting the kingdom's balance. The king smiled and applauded the minister for his wisdom. "You are right," he said. "I was so concerned with changing the world that I failed to see that the change needed to start with me. If we can protect ourselves, we need not alter everything around us." Without delay, the king ordered a pair of leather shoes to be made for himself, and he instructed his ministers to encourage the people of the kingdom to wear shoes as well. The solution was both elegant and practical, and soon the entire kingdom was walking comfortably with their feet protected from the rough roads. The king learned a valuable lesson that day. He realized that sometimes, in our eagerness to solve problems, we focus too much on changing external circumstances when the real solution lies within ourselves. Instead of trying to reshape the world to fit our needs, we should first look inward and make the changes that allow us to adapt to the world around us. Moral: the greatest changes often begin within us. instead of seeking to change everything around us. We should first look at how we can change ourselves. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected with more magical adventures. Until next time.